Hey everybody, it's Harrison. Welcome back to Maine Connects, your source for all things small business and real estate in Maine. If you're a business owner or leader and you're feeling that tension and pressure in your business right now, where things aren't progressing as smooth as you'd hope, things are a little harder than you thought, then this will be a great episode for you. I'm joined today by Laura McDowell, and she is an EOS implementer with EOS Worldwide. EOS stands for Entrepreneurial Operating System. What EOS is, it is a system that brings you the structure and the tools you need to allow your business to operate much more efficiently so you as the owner or leader can focus on the things that are really important and really move the needle in your business and allow the business and the team to run themselves. So if you're a business owner or leader feeling that tension or pressure in your business right now, this will be a great episode for you. Hope you enjoy it. Welcome back to the Maine Connects Podcast. I'm joined today by Laura McDowell. How are we doing, Laura?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. So happy to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
So let's start off with, for people that don't know who you are, why don't you talk a little bit about who you are and what you're doing?
Yeah, so I am an EOS implementer. And so for anyone who's not familiar with EOS, it stands for the Entrepreneurial Operating System. And it's really a set of tools and processes, real world, things that are being used by thousands of businesses currently and have been for years, that really help businesses just get clarity on where they want to go long and short term, making sure they're actually taking the actions day in and day out to make those things happen, and then building really healthy teams with a great culture. So I act as essentially a facilitator, teacher, and coach, helping businesses implement the system and really making sure that they get the most out of all that hard work that they're doing.
Awesome. And are you doing that in Maine only? Are you working with clients in other parts of the country as well?
Yeah, great question. So I'm based in Gorham, Maine myself, and I work with clients within about an hour radius. So anywhere from like the Lewiston, Auburn area, and then I do have a couple clients in like the North Conway, New Hampshire area, so Southeast New Hampshire as well. But
Awesome.
I love
Okay.
working in person with teams. So
Yes, in this world where in-person interaction is coming back, we can do a lot of things via video, but it is sometimes nice to be able to sit across a table and work through a problem together.
yeah, absolutely. Especially with this type of work. When I'm with a team, I'm with them for an 8-hour day. So it's really nice to be able to have sort of the full day of time where we're able to spend together, take breaks together, and, really have that kind of full on interaction. So.
Awesome. All right. So you talked about EOS being a system. Some people think of system like, well, that's a technology thing. Is this a structural thing? Kind of what is that? So when somebody asks you the question of what is EOS, how do you answer that question?
Yeah. And that's so funny because I do, when I've said operating system, I have had people ask me like a computer operating system. And so it is kind of diving a little bit deeper into that, but it's really different tools that help strengthen your business from a broader perspective. And the cool thing about EOS is that it really can work within any industry. So it's really not specific to the type of work the business is doing, but it's really about looking at what we call the 6 key components of a business and figuring out how we can make each of those components stronger so that you're able to sort of cut through some of the more common frustrations that a business might be experiencing, really gain that clarity on where do we want this business to be going long and short term, getting all of your leaders on the same page with that, and then making sure that you're efficiently working towards actually achieving that vision. So I can go into those 6 components. I don't know if that's a good next place to head or.
Yeah, sure. Why don't you outline what those 6 components are and a kind of quick explanation of each one of them?
Okay, cool. So the 6 components, like I said, we call them 6 key components, and they exist in every business. We've just kind of defined them. And so we start with vision, and the vision component is really about getting everybody 100% on the same page with where the business is going and how you're going to get there. Then we talk about the people component. And so your people component, it's kind of like if you want to achieve a really great vision, you've got to have great people. But this concept of great people is so sort of like ambiguous. What does great people mean to my organization versus what does it mean to yours? And so we really dive into like painting a picture of what that looks like. You want a culture that fits, the types of people you want to be surrounded by, to really create that healthy team of people. And so once you get those really great people and you're really strong on that people component, that's how you can really drive that vision. Everyone's on the same page. From there, the third component is data. And so the data component is all about boiling your business down to numbers and facts and figures rather than the subjective information, the feelings, the emotions that are so common, especially in an entrepreneurial business. Like, we put our all into our businesses as entrepreneurs. And sometimes it can be hard to like pull back from that and say, okay, what's the data? How do we make these decisions with real information and not just, what my heart is telling me right now? From there, fourth component is issues. And I always like to caveat that we tend to think of the word issues as a negative, right? Issues are bad. But the reality is the word issues is really just about things that we need to discuss. So they could be great opportunities or new ideas. But, there's negative things as well. What are our challenges? What are our imperfections? And so EOS provides tools that really help you identify issues as they come up, because they're going to come up. They're always going to exist. But can we identify them? Can we prioritize them appropriately? We can't solve everything immediately or right away, or we've got to figure out what we can spend our time on, what makes the most important, what is most important for us to focus on at a given time. So how do we solve those issues at the root, make them go away for the greater good of the organization when it makes the most sense? From there, we have the process component. The process component is about getting all of the most important stuff, that day-to-day stuff that really makes your business run, done the best and right way every single time to help you have more consistency, scalability. It makes it easier and honestly more fun to manage your business when all of that stuff's just getting done correctly, and it frees you up to really do those things that make your business like that magic special sauce. Like, you can do those the way they really need to get done when those base things are being done the best way they can be. And then finally, the traction component. And so we talk a lot about traction in EOS. And so the traction component is really about taking the vision down to the ground and executing on it. Day in, day out, everywhere you look, everyone is rowing in the same direction towards that common goal. A lot of times, entrepreneurial visions, they don't get realized because there's just weakness in that traction component. We can have all the best plans in the world, but if we're not doing what we need to do regularly to execute, it's just not going to happen. And so we really take a holistic approach at saying, how strong are you in each of these 6 areas? And we go on a journey together to help you implement tools and processes in your business that actually work very intentionally on strengthening each of those areas. And from there, businesses are able to just continue to grow and scale and hit the things they want to hit. It's really designed for entrepreneurs, like giving you the structure that you need without feeling like you're in the red tape bureaucracy of a big corporation.
Yeah. And there's so many parts what you just went through that I love, because, what I've found in all my time, operating businesses, running businesses, owning businesses, working with small business owners, is that you typically see these small businesses, they take on the personality of the owner.
Yeah.
So if the owner is a super rigid control freak, then the business operates that way. If the owner is a very kind of loosey-goosey, go with the flow kind of person, that's how the business operates. And what I love about EOS is it allows the entrepreneur or the business owner to kind of be who they are, but it puts a structure around them that prevents the company from necessarily taking on I would say, the negative aspects of that personality. It lets the company be a little more focused and gives the people around them the drive and direction they need. Because when you have that friction between kind of the direction and the people, and there's not really this cohesiveness of how we move forward, that's where this gets lost. Because as well as I do, so many entrepreneurs, we're entrepreneurial because we're creative and we move fast and we're good at doing certain things. We're not necessarily great business operators because that's not what we want to do. Structure and control feels like it's suffocating. And that doesn't always work well for an entrepreneur. So in your perspective, EOS comes in and cures all of that. But for somebody who's thinking about how scary that sounds, how does this process work? Like, how do they get started? How do you take their business and transform it in a way that doesn't completely throw their world into chaos?
Oh my gosh, you have completely hit the nail on the head with everything that you just shared about like the business taking on the personality of the leader, and exactly right. Like these leaders, and we have what we call the role of the visionary, which a lot of times winds up being the person that started the business and they did all the things. And then they've gotten to this point where they've grown the business. They have other employees. but they still have their hands in everything. And sometimes they can be the biggest problem. Like, you got to get out of the way and let all those great people that you brought on, like, do the stuff they're great at doing. And so sort of like saving the organization from just being that personality of the leader. But yeah, it's definitely scary. And I would say that's one of the things that I always acknowledge first when I'm talking with somebody who's interested in EOS. Like, listen, I understand that, you're coming to me, this is your baby, this is your life. And it could be really scary to try something new, to bring somebody in that you don't really know. How are the rest of your people going to take this? And I feel fortunate in that I actually had the experience to go through EOS as a leader. I wasn't the business owner, but I was part of a startup that as we grew, we got to a point where we needed help. And I feel really fortunate that our leader, while he was a true visionary, was comfortable making the decision to say, all right, guys, like, we need help. What should we do? We got introduced to Traction. We did wind up bringing on an EOS implementer. And so having had that firsthand experience of like, this is scary. Like, I'm sitting in this room going, what is this guy going to do? What are we going to have to do? Is it going to be uncomfortable? Is it going to like expose things about me where I could be better and maybe I'm not ready to face that? But at the end of the day, if you really have a team of people that want the business to be better, we say a lot, like, for the greater good of the organization, then it's going to be a great fit for you. And EOS is easy. It's simple. It is not easy. Okay? So when I talk to people about the tools and stuff, I'm like, if you're looking for like the next like newfangled way of running a business, like, EOS is not it. But if you're looking for tools that when you hear them and you go, oh, that makes sense, I've heard things like that before. Yes, this is about actually intentionally putting them in place and holding yourselves accountable to making them work for you. It is hard work, but if you do it, you'll see it on the other side. And so when it comes to actually implementing, I will work with the team through what we call our proven process. And so I always like to caveat that EOS is a franchise. So I'm a franchise owner. I operate independently here in Maine, but there are 649 of us around the world. Wow. And there have been over 100,000 businesses that have used the EOS process. So I always like to say that because this isn't just theory. It's not just like fun stuff that we made up on the side and we're kind of throwing at you and testing and seeing if it works. We know it works because there's thousands of businesses that love it and use it. And so we've created this proven process that time and time again, when we implement in this way, businesses are able to get what they need from the system. So we start with 3 days of implementation that happen over a 60-day period. So I come in, I do a full day with the team. We get them set up with some of the basic tools so that they can start seeing how putting these things in place can really grow or strengthen that traction component of their business. Then we come back 30 days later. We work out any of the kinks or the bugs that they're feeling in those tools that we started with on day one. And then we start really digging into the vision side of their business. Where is this thing going? Let's get this leadership team on the same page with it. They go back into the business for another 30 days. We come back together for the last implementation session. Again, really getting them to feel clear on how to use these tools. They're using them consistently at the leadership team level. We finish up the vision stuff and get them ready to start saying, okay, what parts are we going to start rolling out to the rest of our organization? And so it's not like, we flip a switch and all of a sudden your entire business changes overnight. It's a 60-day implementation process. There's a lot of support in between sessions that I'm there for the clients if they have questions. But it's really about getting in and like understanding it's going to be messy. Like, you're going to make mistakes and you got to be okay with that. It's totally normal. You're learning something new. And if you trust the process, if you believe in the tools of EOS, it's going to work for your business if you put in that work. So.
Yeah. Well, and I like how you break that down, because I know I've talked to many people that either have implemented EOS or have thought about it. And I think in many cases, the ones that implemented it kind of did it on their own. They read the books and did it on their own, but there's this concern of, well, I've got to do it all at once. I've got to just go in on Monday morning and change everything. And we all know that, change management and change itself is hard. There's a process to that. Human beings have habits and behaviors, and they need to be gradually moved to somewhere else. And I like how you break it down in the fact that I'm not going to come in on day one and turn your world upside down. We're going to work through this over a period of 60 to 90 days to get it right, allow you to make mistakes, allow you to growth, and you're going to find your own rhythm, and it begins to work. And I think knowing that you don't have to go in and do this all at once helps. But ultimately, there is change. You are helping them manage change. I know at first, sometimes it feels like, well, I've got to have this meeting and that meeting. But what it does is it really kind of brings you together and organizes and structures. And in your role as a facilitator, when they have bumps in the road, are you on site working through that with them? Are you providing some guidance? To what level do you actually kind of get in the trenches with them to make this work?
Yeah. So I always like to make it really clear that EOS implementers are not consultants. So we're not in the business doing the work with you, but more from that teacher and coach perspective. It's like, we're going to get in the room. Those first facilitation day, or those first implementation days, are a lot of teaching. So I'm in there. I do a lot of talking to get started and really give you an overview of what this journey is going to look like. And here's tool number one, and here's how you're going to use it. And we really work through, what is this going to look like when you get back into your business tomorrow and start using it? Here's what you should expect. And those session days that we spend together are, like I said, 8 hours. So we're spending a good amount of time together in session. And then between sessions, I'm there to help out. So if they've got a question, they can always reach out to me. And it's usually just either a quick phone call or a quick question via email. It's not like people are looking for crazy amounts of support, because at the end of the day, it's simple. It's really just like you said, it's just change. The other thing that I think is important to understand about EOS is it's built in to be really designed to help you create, we call it mastery, which I think is like a very big word for what we're really looking for. But we really want the leadership team to feel like they've mastered these tools before they start rolling them out. So, until you feel really comfortable here within this group, don't start having the marketing team do it or the sales team do it as well. Like,
Right.
Make sure you guys feel really comfortable. And it's always on their timeline. Like, I can provide guidance. I can provide suggestions based on what I'm seeing in that room or based on what we see across the board from more of an average perspective. But like, if you're not ready yet, you don't have to start that rollout process. So everything is normal. Every business is going through things that, we've seen before. So understanding coming into it, like whatever you're dealing with is normal. And we're going to get you there on your own pace. It's all baked into the process. I often find myself saying to clients, trust the process. You agreed you wanted to do EOS, trust the process. I promise you it works. So.
Yeah. Well, I think it's helpful to have somebody from your perspective who's done this in many places, seen this many times, who can tell people, yeah, that's normal. This is a normal bump in the road. And this is how other people have handled it. You're not just providing some theory, you're providing, real world experience of this is normal. Here's how you get through it. Because obviously if you do it for them, it doesn't stick. But if you continue to show them how to do it and support them in doing it, that's when you start to see that change really happen. And you've given a lot of reasons to this point as to what an entrepreneur or business owner might be looking for or might be thinking about when doing this. But when you boil this all down, what is the why behind doing this? Why should a business owner or an entrepreneur say, I need to put something like this in place?
Yeah. So I think the specifics can certainly vary, but I think at the end of the day, what I find is a lot of the clients that I work with, they come to me because they're feeling like they've kind of lost a little bit of the control of their business, or a lot of the control of their business. A lot of businesses that start implementing EOS, they're probably out of the startup phase, right? Like, you get your business going and it's fast and it's a little bit crazy and chaotic, but you're agile. You're able to sort of like bend and move and kind of, do what you need to do to get things done or to fix a problem or whatever. And then as the business starts to grow, have you taken the time to really stop and say, okay, this thing's actually going to work? Like, where do we want to go long term? Where do we want to get to short term? How are we going to do that? And, are we putting things in place that our staff need? And are we really keeping the pulse that we need to be keeping on our clients or our customers, our industry? Because it's really hard to go from like being super involved in your business day to day to being able to step back. And we call it like, that difference between working in your business and working on your business. So if you feel like you haven't worked on your business in a while, EOS is really fantastic about it being very intentional. Like when we're in session together, you are on your business today. You're rising above, looking down, seeing all the moving parts, including yourself. doing all the things. And we're up here. Okay. We're leaving our ego at the door and we are here for the greater good of this business. So if you're really feeling like the control is lacking right now, you may have lost some of that connection with your team and with where you want this business to go. EOS is a great way to get everybody on that page, really figure out where you want the next stage of this business to go. Other businesses, things are going great and they're like, we're ready to scale. And we want to make sure that we've got all of this stuff in place before we start sort of bringing in all these new roles or creating a new, revenue stream. Like we want to have all of these things in place so that that whole process is a little bit smoother. We feel like we're really doing what the right thing is for the next phase of this business. So it's kind of like two different sides of the coin there.
Yeah, it is. And they're two very different hurdles. I mean, I can speak from my own personal experience as businesses scale. Oftentimes it starts as just us. We're the only ones in it. So we do everything, back to your point about working in the business. We are the business. We're doing everything. And then as you get a little bit bigger, you realize, well, I can't do everything. But sometimes it's really hard to hand that stuff off because we always tell ourselves, well, nobody's going to do it like me. And
exactly.
we all realize that is a lie. But it's what we tell ourselves because we're comfortable doing it all. So there's that step one of progression, which is, it's going from just me to me and others. And that's challenging in its own right. And then there's also wow, we've got something here. How do we continue to take this thing even farther down the road and getting into scaling, which those are very different phases of your business kind of journey.
Yeah.
But they're the two biggest hurdles I come across and two biggest transition points where you really, as an entrepreneur or business owner, have to get serious about, do I want to do this? And am I prepared to do this? And if I do, if the answer is yes to both of those, what kind of structure do I need in place to get there? Because if I just think I'm going to get there through sheer brute force and will, that's when you tend to struggle and you burn people out and you never get the traction you're talking about. And I know, having lived through it, both inside of businesses, kind of like you as an operator of businesses, and also as the business owner myself, it is you have to kind of morph yourself and grow yourself to get through those transition points.
Yeah, 100%. I think one of the biggest things that I see leaders struggle with, and again, completely normal, completely common if you feel this way, it is that feeling of letting go and being able to delegate.
It's hard.
If you're familiar at all with like strategic coach and that concept of like your unique ability, we do a lot of reminding our teams of that. Like, you have a real opportunity to live within this unique ability, doing the things that you love to do and are best at. And the only way you're going to do that is by being really honest with yourself about like, what am I really good at? And what do I need to let go of? And kind of building that proverbial like safety net so that when you let go of things, you know that your people are there to catch you. And that's hard. It's really hard work. So I think a lot of the tools within EOS are designed to help leaders become better at delegation, really strengthening sort of that ability as a leader. So that's a big part of it. Get the heck out of it.
And I like that EOS is not trying to put structure in place to restrict you or put handcuffs on you. It's really designed to free you. It's designed to allow you to get out of all that kind of day-to-day in the business stuff that you tend to gravitate back towards and allow you to focus on where you really should. And you've mentioned, a lot of different use types and case types here you've been through. But when you look at EOS, you look at the client base you worked with, what types of businesses are really good fits for this model and this system?
Yeah. So I know I mentioned earlier, it really doesn't matter what type of business you have in terms of like, what is it that you do? What industry are you in? If I were to look at like my list of clients right now, like there's no overlap in the types of businesses that they have. So it's pretty cool, kind of getting in and working with people in all different facets. Some businesses I'm sort of familiar with. I've been in those industries, and others I don't know anything about what they do. So it's really cool to see how it can work regardless. But yeah, I would say typically with EOS, like if you were to look at like what EOS worldwide says as like the target client, typically businesses that have between 10 and 250 employees, they're entrepreneurial, right? We don't tend to be the best fit for like these big corporate businesses, right? That's what it's designed for, the smaller, more nimble business. But the biggest piece, and I've seen this absolutely myself as I've grown my own practice, is really about the mindset of the team. Are you willing to be coached? Are you willing to run your business in a different way? Are you ready? working with leaders that are open-minded, they're growth-oriented, they don't want to stay the same way they've been. Like you mentioned, change is hard. So you're either in it or in here for it, or you're not. And it's okay if you don't want that. You don't have to have it. But if you don't want it, you're going to hate me. And then on the other side, it's really about, I think a lot of it is, and we say this at every session, my expectations for today are that we are all being very open-minded with ourselves, open-minded with each other, and open in that we're not leaving things on the table, and then that we're being very honest. So are you willing to come into this room and be open and honest with yourself, with the people around you? Are you willing to be vulnerable? Because if we can't have those kind of conversations in that session room, you're just never going to get as strong as you need to be, because you're going to be working at sort of like surface level, as opposed to digging deeper to get to that foundation of team health and the greater good of the business. So for me, it's that. I kind of can tell when I get in a room with a team, if I do a free 90-minute session with anyone who's interested. I'll get their leadership team in a room and just kind of show them, like, what is this going to look like on the other side? Do you like me? Do I feel like the right fit? Does EOS feel like the right fit? And I've had leaders cry in that room because they just want better for their business, for their people. And when I see something, you don't have to cry for me to want to work with you, but when I see something like that, I'm like, these people are here for the right reason. Like they are ready to do the work because they care so deeply about truly making this better. And it's not just about them. And that to me is like, you're the type of team I want to be with. So then I've got teams that are 5 people and I've got a team that's 400. So that 10 to 250 is like a nice guardrail, but it's certainly not the end all be all of what makes for a great team.
Yeah, because I was going to ask, in Maine, we have a lot of small businesses that are 3, 4, 5 people that I think even at that size would benefit greatly from having some kind of a structure in place. I mean, I've even seen situations where it's a small business and it's just 3 partners that do everything. And they sometimes just need help delegating and dividing up responsibilities and communicating effectively. And because we all tend to go right back into our comfort zones and we're running and we're working. And oftentimes we kind of forget about all the chaos that we might cause, that wake we leave when we're doing our thing. And I think it's tremendous what kind of structure and context this allows you to put in place so that business can run effectively. Even when you're not necessarily thinking about how to run the business, you've now put it in place where the business runs.
Yeah. And I think one of the cool things too is that within EOS, whether you work with an implementer or you self-implement, as you sort of alluded to before, after you've done that implementation, we create what we call a 90-day world. And so this is something that I feel like every business, whether they run on EOS or not, having that quarterly check-in, like as a team coming back, looking back at the last 90 days, how did we do? Are we all still aligned with where we want this business to go? And then what are our priorities going to be for the next 90 days? Like you can call them whatever you want. Like we call those priorities rocks. But I mean, for any business, whether it's one person, I do this for myself. I'm by myself and I do this every quarter, or a team of, 10,000. You got to come up for air every 90 days and just like do a reset. How did we do? Where are we going next? People start to like fray and lose focus after that sort of time period. So it's just a good checkpoint. And I think, any business can benefit from kind of having that 90-day structure in place.
Yeah, I agree. If everybody just goes off their own directions and runs, and you don't have that way to check in and make sure you're still at least all heading down the same path, we know what that leads to, which is you end up with a business that ends up going a bunch of different directions. Everybody's got their own idea of what success looks like. And when you do finally come back together, you realize you've kind of created the mess for yourself, and you didn't mean to. Everybody had good intentions, but that's just what naturally happens when you don't have that cohesiveness, you don't have that shared vision, and you're not going down that same path. Or as you mentioned earlier, kind of all rowing in the same direction.
Right. And again, like it's human nature. It's not like you're not good at this because you lose focus after 90 days. It's human nature. This is just what we do. And some people are obviously better at it than others, but having that in place is just, it's just a good practice. So.
Yeah. So what do you advise people that you're talking to are maybe some signs that this is a good thing for them? Like how would somebody be able to look at their business and say, I'd be a good candidate for EOS?
Oh man. Yeah. So I think, some of the sort of key points that we see in terms of like, I would say common frustrations that an entrepreneurial business might be experiencing. people. Okay. So if you're feeling like your people are sort of not aligned with you, you feel like maybe you've shared what you want and no one seems to know what's going on. You feel like you maybe have people that are sitting in like roles that they're really not the best at, or you've got someone who may be really good at their job, but they're just kind of like digging away at your company morale. If you're feeling anything there around people, and I mean, honestly, people are tied to pretty much everything in our business. So without the right people situation going, without that strong people component, it's going to be hard to really ever get as strong as you could possibly be. And that can be really hard work dealing with when we don't have the right people in the right roles that are the right fit for our business. So people frustrations, profit frustrations, if you're feeling like you're putting more time and energy and money into this business than you're getting, return on investment on the other side. What else? Yeah, there's just, I would say anything like along those lines, that feeling of lack of control, where like I like whenever I do like a presentation with a group of leaders and we talk about the idea of like, imagine your business is like a van with like the two doors that open in the back, like open like two doors this way. And I know that people can't see me, but you know what I'm talking about. And it's flying down the highway. And you are just like running behind the van, like you're chasing after your business and you're just desperately trying to grab onto one of those doors and like fling your body inside so that you can sit behind the wheel and like pretend that you're in control. A lot of people laugh when I share that because I think they're like, oh gosh, yeah, that's totally me. Like I never wanted to really define it at that level, but that's what I'm experiencing. So that sort of feeling. And then, like I said, beyond that, if it's just that you're feeling like you're at a good place and you're like, we are ready to scale. Like, do we want to go into another sort of revenue stream line? Like, is there something else we're looking at? We know we're going to wind up hiring or needing to restructure the business. Are we at a place where, maybe we had a smaller leadership team and we need to figure out if these are still the right seats for us to get to that next level? Like, how do we really plan in place for this business to grow the way that we want it? Like, we don't work with teams that are like ready to fall into a ditch, right? Like we work with teams that are good and they want to be great. Like they know they can be better. Another kind of thought is like businesses that are succeeding in spite of themselves. Like maybe they're at 20% strong in each of those 6 areas and they're doing pretty darn well, but it's not through any of their own real intentional purpose, right? So really making more purposeful decisions about how to grow your business, just being more efficient, accountability, having better meetings and better communication with each other. Just kind of going from good to great. So.
Yeah, I love the phrase "good to great." That was a great book from years and years ago, and your van analogy is a lot more colorful than the one I use. I always talk about that treadmill effect, where like you can see success in front of you no matter how hard you run and how hard you work. Like you're not getting there, you're not getting any closer to it. But to your point, in some cases, even in those situations, you can be having success, and it almost to a certain extent kind of masks the problems that would allow you to scale.
Yeah.
But you're successful, so you feel like things are working, you feel like things are good. And then what you realize is how much more potential you could unlock if you just took that next step.
It's so true. And I think that's another thing I didn't mention before, but it's that thought of like, I've talked with some leaders where they're like, yeah, like I look at them and I'm like, they're super successful. Their business is going awesome. They probably wouldn't be a team that would ever engage with me. And I have coffee with them. And all of a sudden they're telling me how they're like up at night and they're like, yeah, from the outside, our business looks great. Like even our staff feel like everything's going fine. They have no concerns, but me and my leadership team, like we are stressed and we don't know what to do. Your friends, your family might all think like you've got it all together. And the reality is like, you're kind of terrified. And again, like that's scary and you're not alone. So it's very common, I think, in the entrepreneurial world. And, I think that's the other really nice thing is being able to sort of have these experiences where I get to talk to all different entrepreneurial leaders and be able to say like, you're not alone. And hey, we can even connect with other local businesses in this area so that you guys can kind of learn from each other and kind of just have that recognition that like, this isn't unique to me. Like we're all in this together and we can support each other and get better. And especially being local here, it's like just wanting to see all of our businesses locally, just be better, be the best they can be and have success. So.
Yeah. And I love that because that's really that's the point of this Maine Connects platform that I'm working from is trying to help bring those business owners together because the issues you're having, somebody else has experienced.
Yeah.
And they likely solved it or at least found something that worked for them. And there's so much we can share with each other to try to help through those issues, through those hurdles. And then there's other benefits like EOS, where maybe you're done putting out fires. Now you want to kind of put that structure in place really to give you that platform to really launch and scale. But I do think there's so much power in connecting all these business owners together to be able to ask those questions of, hey, I'm struggling with this. Who else has? Okay, great. How'd you solve it? And you can just go around, you can share all these great learnings in that mastermind type platform where people can get real world experiences and get real understanding of solutions that have worked. So we're not all going it alone, because that's the one thing I hear a lot is, well, I've got to solve this. And my answer is not usually, no, you don't have to solve it. You need to go find somebody else who has solved it and find out what they did. Because the answer is always out there.
Absolutely. And I think one of the common threads too, I notice with a lot of my clients is, at the very least, the owner, the CEO, the visionary, as we often find out they are, if not more people on that leadership team, are part of peer groups. So I would definitely encourage like business owners that are listening to this, like find a peer group, whether it's a local group of other business owners or it's, outside a local area, you meet with people that are specifically in your industry. Find a peer group because they're out there, and it's amazing how often the peer group learnings come up in the sessions. Like, oh yeah, we want to set these goals because we know what these look like from our peer group, and we want to be above average. We want to be at that that level of excellence that we know there. So get out there and meet with others, and don't do it alone. You don't need to do it alone. There's a lot of small businesses locally for sure. So yeah, it's really powerful.
It is. That being able to learn from each other is such a great way to get through these hurdles and make progress. Because the answers are out there. Somebody else has dealt with it. Somebody else has had to live through it. Now it's just important to go find those people that have. So before we let you go, Laura, if somebody's listening today and thinks, wow, EOS is interesting, I think my business could benefit from that. What is the best way for them to get in touch with you, and what does that next step look like?
Yeah. So, they can definitely contact me via email or phone. I guess I'll give you my email address.
Sure.
It's laura.mcdowell@eosworldwide.com. And usually the first step is just a quick chat with, the business owner. And then from there, we look to schedule that free 90-minute session. So I'll say, hey, let's get your leadership team together in a room because it's really important you guys are all on the same page. I promise you're going to get value out of this meeting. Even if you ghost me after it and I never hear from you again, I know that you'll walk away with something that's beneficial. And we just go through everything there, and if they're ready to go, we get started with implementation. So, but yeah, that first, shoot me an email, and we can start chatting. So.
Yeah, I would highly recommend people reach out and take advantage of that 90-minute consultation, because as somebody who's read the books, I have self-implemented EOS in certain parts of my businesses. I'll have to have you come in one day and help me implement the rest of it. But it is amazingly powerful and freeing when you have that structure in place, when you have the right people in the right seats doing all the right things. That stress just fades away. So I would highly encourage people to reach out, get that 90-minute overview, see how it fits into your business, because it really can completely change your trajectory and your lifestyle in a really short amount of time.
Oh, I appreciate that, Harrison. That's so well put from a third party.
Yeah, my pleasure. So anyways, thank you for joining us today, Laura. Loved learning about you and EOS, and certainly look forward to connecting with you again here in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.